Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome back to the podcast about films by filmmakers. I am your host, Mike Keeler. Joining me is owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Mr. Tom Haggis.
Hey, what's up, my fellow artistes? What's going on?
Alongside him is owner of One Genome Short Productions, Mr. Gabe.
Good evening, guys.
And on the other side of the table, owner of Outpost 515 Productions, Mr. Samuel Pace Tuomi.
Hello, everybody.
And our special guest for this month is Sam's better half and lover of all films, Mr. Chris Pace Tuomi.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, thanks for being on, Chris. So how you guys doing? Everyone's doing fine? Yeah?
Yeah.
It's warm out. I'll take it.
So will I. So will I. It's been a long winter here in Iowa.
Oh, shut up.
Oh, someone just passed out. It's probably Gabe from his volleyball.
Are we still recording?
Yes.
Did I miss anything?
Nope, you're good.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the monkey, who I'm going to poke.
Ladies and gentlemen, artists and narcissists, welcome to the main event. Tonight, we have street artists taking on junk artists. Our ring is the canvas, and they will be painting in pain. In the first corner, from 2013, directed by Zachary Heinzerling, starring Yoshio Shinohara, Noriko Shinohara, and Alex Shinohara, Cutie and the Boxer. In the second quarter, from 2010, directed by Banksy, starring Banksy, Space Invader, and Mr. Brainwash. Exit through the gift shop!
All right, well, we've often discussed how hard it is for us to figure out how to organize the documentaries, because we usually do writing, acting, directing overall. So we're going to try something new. Instead of writing, it's going to be the subject matter, and instead of acting, it's going to be the subjects that we're going to discuss. So we're going to give it a shot, see if it works, see if it doesn't. If you guys don't like it, you can let us know. But let's move on to our first round, which happens to be subject matter.
Oh, wow. The subject matter of these two films is very similar. It does relate the common theme of art. But what I believed was that the Exit Through the Gift Shop focused more on the act and creation of art itself, and the Cutie and the Boxer documentary was more about the family. Now, I know in some way we're going to talk a lot more about the family when we talk about the subjects or the acting portion of this podcast, but I think as far as the subject matter goes, Cutie and the Boxer was about the family, and it was in the orbit of art, and that was kind of the background and all-encompassing of the immersion through art, whereas I felt that, Exit Through the Gift Shop was all about the street art aspect, I guess, the creation of it, and almost mimicry after Mr. Brainwash begins to do it himself. I think one thing that happens during Exit Through the Gift Shop is that it kind of fractures a little bit, in that you think you're watching a certain type of documentary, and then it kind of turns more on this character, which we'll talk more about in subjects, I guess, but it kind of turns to him and his making of the art, as opposed to just document it. And I was most fascinated personally by the portions that were true documentation of the street art, and you would see these, all these different artists putting up these really unique, fun works, So for subject matter, that's kind of where I was drawn to on Exit to the Gift Shop, especially.
Yeah, and it is difficult for documentaries to fall into our kind of typical kind of structure for the show, and I was thinking about it beforehand in the whole writing topic, which is kind of the subject matter area that we're talking about now, and how much of that it actually it's kind of written for you to a certain degree, but the editor or the director also has a lot of control over that in the editing phase. And I know that's something that we normally talk about later, but I think it's really important for documentary films in the writing phase, because they're not really, although I guess the Roosevelts has been on IPTV a lot lately, and I feel like there's actually probably a lot of writing involved there. There's a lot of
spoiler alerts, please. I do not want to know what happened.
They're really good, by the way. It's really excellent stuff. But you have to be committed. I've only seen parts of it, but it's really very interesting. But I feel like in that instance, in something that's already passed, that there's an opportunity to do some more writing. You can look back on these things and kind of organize it and do a little bit more writing and be more selective about the things that you talk about. But I feel like both of these documentaries were kind of, in a certain sense, being made roughly about the time that the events were actually happening. These people, and so I feel like you've got less opportunity to kind of control that, and that control and that writing or that direction for the film, the subject matter, comes in the editing phase to me. And you have a lot of control over the tone and what you're trying to say with this documentary. And I think that's particularly evident in Exit Through the Gift Shop because of the nature of it, because of the guy who was doing all the videotaping and just having massive amounts of material
Thousands
to work with.
Hours.
Yeah, and somebody had to go through that, at least portions of it,
Sure,
and
but
make
do you think that
decisions.
Or was he playing a character? Like, do you think portions of that? To me, portions of Exit to the Gift Shop felt like, I could see if this was totally fake and there was no Mr. Brainwash.
Yeah.
So they just created him.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean,
so let me ask you. I mean, Tom hasn't gone yet, but let me ask: do you guys?
It's fine.
but that's okay. No big
That's
deal.
okay though. Let me ask you guys: do you think this was all just a big prank? Exit Through the Gift Shop.
I don't care. And I mean that in like in the way that people talk about the end of Inception. I don't. It doesn't matter to me whether it's real or not, because and same with like Life of Pi. If it's more interesting that it's made up, if it's more, whatever story is more interesting is the one that I'm going to believe, because if you don't know one way or the other, what difference does it make? I mean, if you can't prove it one way or the other, then embellish it, roll yourself around it and enjoy it. And, I was very skeptical about whether or not Exit Through the Gift Shop was real. Because it all seemed very much staged and theatrical, like everything that Banksy does. And it just really seemed like it was, an 85, 90-minute Banksy painting that, he was just trying out a new medium. So, I mean, from that it seemed to me like it doesn't really matter. Because you can make a commentary on the commercialism of art with this documentary without whether or not it's real doesn't even play into it. The fact is, they held this exhibit with this guy with this limited amount of talent and sold $1 million worth of paintings, and that's the commentary. So it doesn't matter if it's real. Do you understand?
Well,
I talked in circles.
No, it's fine. I totally get it. It was just worrying me because a lot of people out there, just think that this is a fake. It shouldn't be even considered a documentary. It's more of just an art piece, by Banksy. A lot of people say that he's behind the entire thing, getting everything put together. So I was just wondering how you guys felt about it. And I agree with Tom. I think it's an absolutely entertaining documentary. Now, whether or not that last word, documentary, should be used or not, it's still an entertaining film.
Well, and I think you can question that on a lot of documentaries too. Because, when I was younger, I always just assumed that documentaries were presenting the truth.
Right.
But I mean, they're not. Most documentaries are not much different than a fictional film, in that they're presenting a story, and it may be a somewhat opinionated story.
Oh yeah.
It may be a biased story. It may be a fabricated story.
Yeah,
to a certain degree.
I thought the California Raisins was a documentary. And
Jesus.
that's where they heard it from. Like, they were just happy to tell everybody.
Right.
What the hell was that?
Yeah, are we talking about?
The California raisin. Too soon.
You mean they're not real?
No, they're not.
Oh shit!
Sorry.
I suppose next you're gonna tell me this isn't real.
Well, I couldn't.
Hey, my kids listen to this fucking show. Easy.
Jesus. You let your kids listen to this shit? Oh, man.
As long as it doesn't have an E. Oh, guys.
Done.
Yeah, as long as we don't talk about Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny. Or the California Raisins, apparently.
Wow, that's probably all going to get cut out right there in the middle.
Yeah, are you going to have to bleep
absolutely
that?
not.
It's going to be like,
It's
beep
going.
isn't real, and beep isn't real. And Tom's kids are like, what are they talking about?
Well, to get back, all right, to get back
Capitalism.
on track with the exit through the gift shop, like, I felt that a portion of it was definitely real. Like, when you saw the early part, the part of the, the street art, like with a lot of the whitewashing of the white glue washing on the buildings and like that kind of stuff. Like, that to me, that was just getting good. And then they're like, here, let's change it a little bit, whether it was reality or not. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I felt like it was a lot about like a cautionary tale with Exit to the Gift Shop. Letting Mr. Brainwash get involved in the whole thing was, I think Shepard Fairey thought maybe a mistake because he was, he made it more commercial and he didn't, he was basically just copying what he's seen and calling it art. I mean, I think he admitted as much in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I just thought it was a cautionary tale.
Yeah, and then people like Banksy and others who were like, oh, but it's never been about the money or it's never been about the notoriety or any of that. It's
Sure,
about there. But do you believe them? To me that sounds like they're kind of jealous.
Well, in some ways, like, they make so much money anyway that they're not really that far outside anymore. At one point they are in their career when it's all underground and just messages. But when they're having shows where they're making millions of dollars themselves, like, it's not, you can only play that outsider card for so long.
And how do they do that with an anonymous, quote unquote, anonymous street artist having a show? How does that work?
Right. And unless they
I didn't quite understand that, but
yeah. Well, and some, I think some artists are really cool. They don't know who it is. Like, that intrigue is always there, and they, enact, they begin an act of social change on a very small level, but it can add up if people see it in the right numbers or start thinking. So, and if they don't reveal themselves, to me, that's a really cool street artist that you never know them, that they just keep you thinking and you don't necessarily ever know what's going on. I know I'm getting way off track here again. So,
But isn't that? I mean, isn't that kind of part of the act, though? I mean, Banksy knows that his art will carry more weight if nobody knows who he is. If you don't attach this persona to what you see on the wall, then it carries more weight, and the art is able to stand on its own. Once everybody figures out who Banksy is, then that art is significantly diminished. So, I mean, it's a pretty clever move, but I don't even know why I'm talking about Exit for the Gift Shop. I'm voting for Cutie and the Boxer because the subject matter was better, and seriously,
I'm too. Let's take a vote.
Well, do you want to say anything about Cutie and the Boxer? I mean, we've talked a little bit about Exit through the Gift Shop.
Exit through the Gift Shop completely blew me away. I mean, I got on the treadmill and my plan was to watch half of it and then watch the next half on the next day when I hopped back on again, and I wound up running for 80 minutes and causing some damage, but because it was great, and I couldn't stop. And Cutie and the Boxer, I was completely blown away, but in a completely different way, and it was more of a getting a glimpse into these people's lives in such an intimate way, and it was edited with such a delicate brush. I thought that the scene where he's painting the octopus painting, and these big bold strokes and everything else, and he says, he's like, "Is it good? Is it bad? Is it finished? Is it unfinished?" And she goes, "I don't think it's very good," and walks away. And like the anguish on his face when it settles in that he is not the artist that he thought he was. I don't. How do you even find a story like this and begin to tell it and hope that it unfolds in such a way that it benefits your documentary? I don't know if I have that kind of faith in any subject matter to put that much time into it, to be honest with you.
Well, and here's the thing is they could have set out just to do something totally different, and this all happened, and they were able to change it up from what they were originally going to do. Possibly.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It could have just been a a documentary on Ushio, and but I mean, just the stark contrast between them and their painting styles and what inspiration they drew from. It's absolutely amazing story, and I think it has more to do with like real life and real relationships and the stuff that people, the crap that people deal with every day. I think Cutie and the Boxer is much more relevant than Exit Through the Gift Shop, who, makes me look twice at the posters at Hobby Lobby. I don't go to Hobby Lobby. Shit. Michael's. When I go to Michael's.
Well, I think what Cutie and the Boxer does, it really helps make art accessible and makes it focus that it's a simple story of love with them and their art, with them and each other, and how that coexists. Whereas, we can all access that kind of feeling of emotion, whereas Exit Through the Gift Shop's the other extreme, kind of the, 1 in a million, you'll make $1 million and you can, fool the people and do all this. Whereas it's a smaller, more intimate story. And whether that happened, whether they knew they were getting into that, or they started filming and said, damn, we've got a lot of, great interpersonal stuff here. But that's what I think Cutie and the Boxer comes across as, I don't know, more real is the term that I'm looking for. But it was easy for me to get engrossed into it and kind of, look like I was getting to observe a very intimate part of these people's lives. And they're charming. They're just absolutely charming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think the word that comes to mind for me for Cutie and the Boxer is authentic. It seemed very authentic. It seemed like we were really getting a glimpse into their lives, and they didn't really hold anything back. That these filmmakers had an unprecedented access to their everyday lives. Just even and we got to see them doing simple things too. It was about art, and it was about the process of creating art and the meaning of art. But it was also just simply about day-to-day living on a certain level. We saw them, eating lunch and brushing their teeth and, just simple everyday things. And it seemed more authentic and more accessible to me.
All right. Anyone else? We can put it to a vote. Let's put it to a vote.
Okay.
Sam.
Cutie and the Boxer.
Gabe.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go with Cutie and the Boxer too.
Tom.
I'm going Cutie.
Chris.
I'll make it unanimous. Cutie and the Boxer.
All right. Well, there's not a whole lot of trivia for either one of these films, so my job's going to be easy tonight. Let's move on to our second category, which is usually acting, but tonight it's going to be the subject.
Well, based on our conversation in the previous category about Exit Through the Gift Shop, you could argue that maybe there is some acting going on here. If we feel like it was a little bit kind of an art piece itself and maybe somewhat staged. But again, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's difficult for a documentary filmmaker. They find an interesting subject, and then I think they have some work to continue to define that subject later on in the editing process. And again, I feel like that's where I feel like these filmmakers get a lot of footage, and then it's up to them to create the story and to create the characters to a certain degree in the editing process. And to be honest with you, at times with Exit Through the Gift Shop, I kind of felt a little bit. I felt like my mind wandered a little bit. I was really interested in the street art and the Banksy thing, but then when they started focusing on this filmmaker, the guy, the videotape,
Mr. Brainwash,
the videotape enthusiast, if you will. I sometimes found myself kind of wandering a little bit, and I don't know. And one of the things that I thought about was somebody who is really passionate about something, but not necessarily very good at it.
right?
Because I felt like he was super passionate about videotaping things, but when you look at the footage, I felt like he wasn't really that good at it. He just did a lot of it, but he never really got any better.
Well,
it was. Go ahead.
I think that shows in the film he put together. Just watching that first, 1 to 2 minutes that they showed, and then Banksy comes in and says that the entire movie was like that. There's no way I could sit through something like that.
Right. Was that a sneak peek into ADD or something?
Right.
Is that? Do we know now what it's like?
It's like an arts installation. That edit would be pretty cool if you just had that playing for like hours of all random stuff. Like that would be fucking awesome.
Absolutely, yeah. Just playing on a white canvas on the wall. I think that would look awesome. But to sit in a movie theater, and try to discern what is happening, what's going on. It's like you're being brainwashed almost.
Right. So I mean, but it sounds like there's some question as to the authenticity of Exit Through the Gift Shop, whether or not this was staged entirely, if this person really existed, and if he really did these things, and I guess you could say he really did these things, but whether or not it was actually kind of an art experiment or whether it was truly a documentary. So I guess you could argue that there's a potential that there was some acting going on here,
Sure.
from all of them, because it seems to me like they'd all have to be in on it.
Acting. He even says he's not much of a director or whatever, even if that is the person who really is Banksy, but whoever was addressing the camera was performing.
Sure.
I think.
Well, and he had the benefit of hindsight too. He was able to kind of talk about these things in the past tense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but again, and I think when we were talking about the subjects, I don't know. I feel like again the Cutie and the Boxer was a little bit more authentic, and you could identify with them a little bit more because you saw things that they were going through things that you might go through in your daily lives.
Right, and think about them talking about Spielberg and what's good Spielberg and what's bad Spielberg. And
right.
That made me laugh.
Moments that you have yourself, like that was awesome to me. She's at one point talking about she doesn't like a Hollywood ending. I thought it was just that kind of conversation at that level was just, it really endeared me to the subjects. And then seeing their son kind of in the background and not overdone, like getting a glimpse of him and some of his amazing artwork, but not overshowing it too much because it was a story about both of them. Plus you get cartoon penises and vaginas.
Right.
Hey, that's what everybody wants. Give them what they want.
That's everybody really. Yeah, that's really all that everybody wants.
I know.
Yeah, and they deliver
in spades.
Right. Well, and that was kind of fun in it too. And I think for documentary type films, the subjects aren't necessarily only the people that appear. I think in these two instances, some of the subjects are actually the artwork themselves, and I think in Cutie and the Boxer they highlight that quite a bit. I mean, they go through. Obviously, there's a lot of art presented in Exit Through the Gift Shop, but I feel like it's kind of transitory. We don't really get a good detailed look at it and how that art came about. It's more about the people doing the art and the excitement of doing the art. I'm running around at night and I'm painting on a building that I shouldn't paint on, and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. I feel like you don't get a glimpse at what the art is really about necessarily, nor do you get a chance to contemplate what it's really about in Exit to the Gift Shop. Whereas, I mean, it's just such a complete character study in Cutie and the Boxer, where you may get a glimpse behind what maybe inspired him to do motorcycles, or obviously what inspired Cutie to do her stories that she does in her artwork. I don't know. I think it just works so much better in that. And I don't know. It's much more compelling to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like you can identify with it a little bit more. It's like, okay, well now I understand the artwork a little bit better.
Right.
Whereas I don't know, maybe the street art thing maybe that's what it's about. It's about the thrill of doing it.
Sure. Well, and having gone through like a fine arts education, like there's portions of Exit the Gift Shop that remind me of a lot of documentaries that I saw during that time. About artists like Keith Haring, who did some very similar early street art in New York in his early time. And then when it kind of shifted to this filmmaker story about doing it himself, it also reminded me of people I knew in art school and around associated with artists who get caught up in something and say, I can do that, in some way diminishing the artist, saying, what you're doing is not special, or anybody can draw that, or, create soup cans or whatever it is. Because at first Andy Warhol was openly mocked and just saying, this guy is not even, the definition of art. It's undefinable. But that's the fun game, because people know it when they see it. And having been around that, in some of these gallery settings, it was fascinating for me to watch the interactions of the art manager with the couple in Cutie and the Boxer.
Oh, I couldn't stand him.
Well, I know. Sorry. He wouldn't let her talk.
Well, and also the lady from Guggenheim and stuff like that. I feel like I'm around those types of people in those kind of settings, and it was so real, and they actually kind of help offset the main characters and how relatable they are, even though they have these mad genius ideas and ways of recreating them. And you can see how art is the soul of this family. And it's, I don't know, it feels like they're opening up so much of their life to see this kind of raw interaction they have with something that they love, but at the same time hate, which brings them together and sometimes keeps them apart, and, everywhere in between.
I kind of, the whole, consumerism versus art, I mean, it's been done to death. It's been analyzed, a million different ways. I thought that the approach that Banksy took in Exit Through the Gift Shop was really clever, and I've always been really cynical about it. I mean, like the Oscars, for example. I mean, it's the same thing. It's not. They don't award the best film of the year. They award the film that had the best marketing campaign.
Right. Or the most votes.
Or the most votes, or the one that happened to come out the last 2 weeks of the year that had a certain amount of star power and a certain amount of attention. Rarely do they actually give it to the best film, and that's fine. That's the way that they do their thing, and that's what Exit Through the Gift Shop is about. Is just it's not about the quality of the art. And I would have been interested to see if they had gone a little more into depth. Is that, I mean, can you even really objectively judge art? I mean, is it something that can actually be compared to side by side? If people are going to pay that much money for the stuff that Mr. Brainwash was doing, I don't know. I found that part of it really fascinating, and that they would look at that. Sorry, my brain just wandered.
No, you're right. Though sometimes that hype helps sell the art, and to me, it's all art. It's everywhere on that spectrum, and the pricing of it really depends on I think it's some absurd stuff in Exit Through the Gift Shop, but I think when they're referring to pricing as far as size of the piece and canvas and stuff, it's very realistic in Cutie and the Boxer. Even though he thinks it's going to be a little lower, she's like, you need to bring home a little more than that.
Right.
And for an artist of his reputation at this point, he should probably. But what I'm saying is, like, I don't know, the whole relationship to art. I was not necessarily hesitant about this episode, but I didn't know how I was going to feel about going to these documentaries, and it was so refreshing for me to go back kind of into that art world, critical thinking that I haven't necessarily been in within several years. But to me, the subject that we're talking about, art, I think that's a really good thing. I think this is some great suggestions, and I'm glad we are talking about it.
All right, let's put it to a vote, boys.
I think I have to go with Cutie and the Boxer because they seem more relatable than in Exit Through the Gift Shop.
Good point. Tom?
I'm going to go through Exit Through the Gift Shop for making a compelling story about a subject matter that's been done over and over and over again.
Sam?
I'm going to go with the California Raisins.
I don't have that on my paper.
Okay, well, then I'll go with Cutie and the Boxer then.
All right. And Chris?
Cutie and the Boxer. I feel like I know who they are.
All right. Well, and I said in the last round that Banksy was behind it. I mean, of course he was. He was the director, but a lot of people have been stating that he set out to do an art piece and make it feel like a documentary. So after reading all of that, after I watched it the first time, it kind of diminished it. But watching it again for this podcast, it's so entertaining. I mean, Tom hit it right on the head. It's so entertaining. But I just watched Cutie and the Boxer today, and it brought home a lot of feelings that I've had in the past because my wife and I are filmmakers, so I think of filmmaking like all of us. We do our own art, and I see a lot of that struggle between her and I, and sometimes she gets overshadowed by me, and it kind of opened it up that, wow, I need to I need to make sure I don't do that to her, type of deal. So, yeah, I both films are great for two totally different reasons. Let's move on to our third round, which is directing.
If I was 100% honest, I would give the directing to Cutie and the Boxer and editing to Exit Through the Gift Shop, because we talk about editing within directing, and it made me sick to my stomach watching Exit Through the Gift Shop to look at those, totes and totes and totes full of tape, and knowing that someone had to go through them all and mark them and catalog them in some way to put this film together. And the fact that they were able to get a compelling, interesting, entertaining film out of that footage is worth noting. And, kudos to them. Very good. On the other hand, the Cutie and the Boxer, it had a really strong chance of kind of being, a milquetoast story about an artist, the poor struggling artist in New York. And they took these two artists who live a world away from me. I mean, they might as well live on another planet. And they did such a great job. Like you guys mentioned, those scenes where they're doing the everyday things, the eating and conversing and showering, the things that we do every day, and the way the two of them interacted and somehow, reached out, through the ethos and, tapped me on the shoulder and connected with me. And it's really hard for a film to do that and tell this universal love story because it's funny because of the part where she says that, in Japan, opposites attract. And I was like, oh, honey, it's not just Japan.
Did you say, well, honey? Oh, honey.
Oh, honey. So, it was very much it's more universal than that. And I was just, opposites attract everywhere. I mean, it's part of falling in love. So I think for that, I think the directing in Cutie and the Boxer is probably better than Exit Through the Gift Shop, but I'm really starting to get scary about where this is going, because when we picked these two, this is not where I thought we'd wind up.
I totally agree with that, Tom.
Well, I think the editing for sure for Exit Through the Gift Shop, because yes, I like you when you saw that tape, you know what you'd have to go through to get even the portion that you saw of what we'd seen of that.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, in some ways, the directing in Cutie and the Boxer, he basically let everything unfold between them, and the power of his directing was not getting in the way of that, of just efficiently capturing what he needed to, being very selective in some way. He delivered a much tighter package to his editor. Yes, I said tighter package than they did for Exit Through the Gift Shop, I think.
Lovely.
Where they just had to wade through a lot of stuff. And in some way that directing, basically let him tell this beautiful story that's simple and effective.
Well, and I think one of the things that I liked about Cutie and the Boxer too is that it was clearly, kind of crafted, but they also stepped back from it a little bit. And there were these really quiet moments where we just saw things happening on screen, and we didn't have narration. We didn't have any kind of we didn't have anybody telling us what was going on. We had the opportunity to
witness it.
Yeah, see it happening and make our own, kind of decisions and judgments about it. And that's one of the things I kind of liked about it, is that it kind of stepped back and it just said, it was documentation almost to, the ultimate degree. Here, I'm just showing this to you. This is what happened. I documented this moment. This is what happened. I'm not narrating it. I'm not telling you what it's about. I'm letting you decide. And I think that's one of the things I liked about it is sometimes I think maybe good direction is getting out of the way, especially when it comes to a documentary.
And taking that even further, Cutie and the Boxer, I just realized this just sitting here now. There were no sit-down interviews in that entire film.
No,
not
really.
And those sit-down 3-point lighting interviews, those are a really good opportunity for the documentary maker to steer the conversation and get the sound bites they want, and help create, fill in those gaps in the story. And the fact that they didn't do that and still told such a moving personal story is really amazing. Really amazing. They filled it with those glimpses and those little looks that they had.
Do you feel like
broke your heart?
Do you feel like we had some of those moments though that were not necessarily, we didn't see them on the screen, but there were interview moments where they were talking, because I think about the very end where she's talking and she's saying things. Spoiler alert, by the way. At the very end, she's saying, I don't regret, if I had a chance to do it all again, I would, because that's, what made me and made this art. I feel like we didn't necessarily see them. There wasn't the 3-point lighting. We didn't see them sitting there on the screen, but there were those interview moments.
Right. And there's, and it's providing some voiceover, absolutely. But because of the fact that we never see her, sitting in a chair and being asked questions, it just underlines the realness. Realness? What the hell? The reality that they tried to capture. So,
sure.
Chris?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm a little lost.
Talking directing?
Right. I can't separate that from writing.
Well, it's tough to do that in documentaries.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, in this case it is. Yeah.
They're all kind of intertwined,
Sure. Yeah, when we were talking about footage and editing and how that's part of directing, I actually appreciate it more in Cutie and the Boxer, even though I do appreciate that they had to go through thousands of hours of tape for Exit Through the Gift Shop. I think that the footage that they found for Cutie and the Boxer was always so poignant. The part where he starts, he's drunk and this is Ushio, he's freaking out about his life and what am I doing with my life? And that was momentary. He knows what he's doing with his life, but you have moments like that, I would imagine. I'm not an artist, but I would imagine that you do. And I don't know, it just hit home for me. All those old little bits of footage in that movie.
Well, and that's very true, and it's very goes to the point of a good director in some ways. Again, of opening it up, letting the story tell itself, even when it's found footage and you're going back looking for a specific memory of that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Since we said thousands of hours, it was 10,000 hours of tape. Some poor editor had
10,000 hours?
10,000 hours.
Of all formats, because he said he started taping on the high 8.
High 8, mini DV, you name it. 10,000 hours, over 10,000 hours.
Right, and he was very kind of I didn't even write stuff on stuff. Just hearing the sheer cost of all that stock I kept asking Chris, where is he getting? I know he's got the store, whatever. He supposedly has a lot of money. Where is he getting all this money to do all this stuff? Especially when he was creating the art. I know he had a store that he mortgaged and whatnot, but just the sheer reproduction costs and the huge staff he had. There's it takes a lot of money. It's a lot more money than a lot of the artists ever have before they have a show. And I think at one point, someone points out that he has more artwork in there than most ensemble group shows. And someone who's put together and curated a show and whatnot, it's ungodly amount of art, but somehow, some people were they connected with it, or part of the new celebrity that he was trying to create when he was there and riding the wave in some ways of the street art. But I think in some ways the directing, I know Banksy had portions of it, but I really don't know how much other than name for sure was he doing as a director of this piece. I feel like there was a lot of different crews shooting, and then they kind of said, well, what can we do with all of this stuff? Starting with all those hours of, footage you're talking about.
Yeah. Right. No, I mean, it's funny you guys brought it up. I really kind of saw a little bit of myself in Mr. Brainwash in the beginning of the film, because I remember when I started shooting stuff, I would just try and capture everything. But I would write on the tapes. I'd write what it was for, but I would never do anything with it. And eventually I woke up to that. I'm like, well, mini DV at the time, it was pricey. I was going through tapes. So I just stopped.
Yeah.
And then I started seeing it get out of control. But I'll save this for overall, as far as my feelings about Mr. Brainwash. But do you guys have any more pieces you want to hit on directing for either film? I'll take that as a no. Let's put it to a vote. Gabe.
I think I'm going to go with Cutie and the Boxer again. I liked how they kind of backed off a little bit and allowed the story to kind of present itself.
Tom?
Yeah, I'd probably go with Cutie and the Boxer on the directing. Just the way that they were able to, I don't know, the cameras it seemed like, I can't imagine watching this movie on a 60-foot screen. And just, it was incredibly intimate, and kudos to the director for that.
Chris?
Cutie.
Sam?
Cutie.
All right, let's move on to our fourth and final round overall.
All right, I guess that's me. I was shocked that I am coming down on the side of Cutie and the Boxer, considering I saw Exit to the Gift Shop 2010, maybe 2011 when it came out. And, I was just transfixed. I think because I didn't really know much about street art at all. I didn't know about Shepard Fairey or Banksy at all. So, that was just fascinating. And, I came out of it saying I love this movie and recommended it to everybody that I know. But just to see how I don't know, how tight a package, to put it the same way that Sam did.
Oh my!
Cutie and the Boxer is. Cutie and the Boxer, I don't know. I feel like it's just so beautiful, the whole thing, and I don't know. There aren't really loose ends. I feel that there are just a lot of sort of random dull moments in Exit Through the Gift Shop where we're kind of watching Mr. Brainwash hang out, or things like that. I don't feel like there's a moment where I'm not glued to the screen watching Cutie and the Boxer. So that's definitely where I come down, and I did not expect that would be the case.
Yeah, Cutie and the Boxer is like, you don't have any characters that you dislike, or it's easy to watch, and to me it was very kind of uplifting. And it was a great expose in some ways of. It wasn't an expose. It was a great portrait of this family, and the money wasn't important. The only thing that was their love of each other and of art, of creating something, which it's a very noble thing to create something from nothing and get other people to talk about it, espouse to it, or try to do that themselves and maybe inspire them. But I don't know, there's something that's all around good about Cutie and the Boxer that is kind of leading to me to lean very heavily on that side, even though I'd seen Exit Through the Gift Shop one and a half times before we came back to it, maybe twice. So I was a lot more familiar with it, but came away feeling much more distant from it. Whereas after one viewing all the way through of Cutie and the Boxer, like I still, have that warm feeling.
Yeah, and the more we talk about it, I feel the more like Exit Through the Gift Shop might be kind of a marketing piece. We talked about it as possibly being maybe a Banksy-inspired kind of art piece, but it seems like it could potentially be a Banksy marketing piece. Because I mean, how good does it look to be like, oh, hey, I'm this super mysterious artist guy, and I let this other guy come in and videotape me, but only my hands and my face. And, oh, look at all these cool things that I happen to have done. And it does at times. Now, granted, maybe it's all real. Maybe that's really how it happened. Maybe Banksy kind of took over the footage because Mr. What's his name again? Mr. what? Mr.
Brainwash.
Brainwash. Mr. Brainwash didn't really know what he was doing.
But he's not.
That could all be true, but it seems also highly convenient. So, I guess, I don't know. And I did find myself at times, my mind kind of wandering while I was watching it. I was very interested in it when I first, when we decided we were going to do it, I was like very interested in it. I wanted to see it. And then I felt at times that I was kind of like distracted. I was kind of wandering. Whereas with Cutie and the Boxer, I kind of wanted to see what was going to happen with these people. I really started to kind of feel like I was knowing these people. Like I was getting to know them, and I wanted to see what was going to happen and how things turned out for them. Now, I'm not sure that we really know. I mean, both of these things are a little bit open-ended, and I'm not sure that we really know what happened to them unless we maybe did a little Googling about it. But, I feel like I was more engaged and more interested in what was happening to the subjects in Cutie and the Boxer than I was ultimately in Exit Through the Gift Shop.
Both movies have this point about 90% of the way through where, they go into kind of a musical montage to get you ready for the finale, and both of them, you have to say to yourself, I really don't know how this is going to end. Like, I don't know if, Cutie and Bully are going to stick together, and in Exit Through the Gift Shop, you're like, I don't really know what's going to happen at Mr. Brainwash's show, and I think that's one of the reasons why both of these, and admit, score aside, both of these are really good films. And I think that wow, what is wrong with me today? I say I haven't had any coffee or Red Bull today, so I'm so skittish. But they, I think that the way that the story unfolds, and I'm going to have to take a pass on this one. Holy cow.
Mike,
oh my God.
What do you think of Mr. Brainwash, Mike? You said you'd tell us.
Oh, Mr. Brainwash. Well, like I said, Oh God, I have the Tom disease. I really
Tomitis.
I could look at him and know where he's coming from with that, but then it kind of went to a sad place for him after losing it was his mother, correct? And and he wished he would have had those memories, and so he just started shooting everything. And I think it was for him, it was a way to save those memories in case he ever forgot. He could go back and watch the tapes, but here's the problem: is you don't have them marked. So how do you know what's on it? I mean, are you just going to sit down one day and just watch through 10,000 hours like some poor editor had
Why
to do?
wouldn't his wife or significant other be like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Well, and she's now
sure she did. On those tapes.
I'm sure she did it, and now she's shooting things according to the end little epilogue. But when it started to come to the art, when he started doing his own art, I thought the street stuff was cool, but then the whole show and everything, I think it just really the ego started to go out of control. At first, I was like, yeah, I kind of like this guy. And then towards the end, I was like, I really don't like this guy. And
and that's what his staff was like, too. And they were like, we'll never work with him again. Like,
yeah.
Just seeing the way he didn't manage them. I mean, you could say manage them, but it was a joke. And it was, some people, rich people said, well, we want to be on the joke and we want a piece of that. So in some ways, he got validated. And is continuing to, sell what some would call overpriced art, but then again, it's all very subjective. That's the whole thing about the art world. And the thing I think is great about it is nobody has the right answer, but there's kind of a spectrum of where you feel that artist lies between kind of pure artist and bullshit artist.
Right. Well, and to me, it just felt like a con job. He was just doing a con job because this was a big movement. He knew something about it. So he was going to try and get in on the money while the money was good.
Sure.
Type
like
of deal.
Much like what people said he did with his business, selling these vintage pieces for hundreds of thousands of dollars, supposedly how he made his money.
Right.
It's just another kind of flim flam or a redress of something
he'd already done.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And watching Cutie and the Boxer, I just saw two people that were in love, but also despised each other on some levels, that had drug each other around in the mud, but were also there to hold the other one up. It was just so fascinating. And I'll like Chris said, I went to see Exit Through the Gift Shop. I saw it at the Fleur, and I loved it. I just went crazy for it. But after watching it and comparing it with Cutie and the Boxer, God, there's so much heart. Exit Through the Gift Shop is entertaining. There's no doubt. It is very entertaining. I laughed out loud quite a few times. But when you get to Cutie and the Boxer, that is the reason documentaries exist. It's for you to be able to relate. You can relate to Exit Through the Gift Shops to some people, possibly, but Cutie and the Boxer, like if you're in a relationship, you relate just automatically to that. I feel the dynamic of the relationship, and these two people that love each other and love their art, and what's kept them together for 40 years is just, it's unbelievable. It's such a, as you guys have said, and I'll just say it again, it's such a personal story. I mean, there's times where you feel like you're in the room with them. There's no camera movement to pull you out of it. You feel like you're sitting there watching it happen. Where I've watched documentaries, it's about camera movement, It gets to more like the narrative filmmaking, like what we do sometimes. But this was just like, oh, I need to capture this. And I killed the show. I tend to do that. So
I thought Mr. Brainwash looked like Rob Schneider, to the point like I had to pause it at the beginning and be like, well, this is definitely fake because that's Rob Schneider.
I didn't think of that until you mentioned it. Now I can see it. I can totally see what you're saying.
I love the question they asked him too, like, or he said, I thought, telling people about art and telling them to go out and do their own art was a good thing. And then they're like, are you going to ever do it again? He's like, probably not. Or he said, probably not. I just thought that was such a great line. That made me laugh so hard. But
but the funny part about that is it was a deception kind of from the start anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he didn't really mean for him to go out and do his own art.
He was
just wanted him to be distracted.
Yeah, to like get away.
Yeah,
and it backfired.
So that Banksy could come in and do the documentary.
And my favorite quote from the film is, "I don't know who the joke is on. Really, I don't even know if there is a joke." But and for Cutie and the Boxer, I mean, when I forget who brought it up, and when they're using that footage that was shot, way back when he's just going off, and he's like, life is wonderful, it should be positive. Why do it just makes me cry, and he just breaks down. I believe in my career, God damn it.
Right.
That just like hit me in a place.
I think Chris brought that up about the film, and that's what gives it that rawness to it. As you see that, and you can also identify that with that pride in yourself, and that he, regardless of no one understands what he has wrapped up in his career and what it means to be a success. And maybe that's different in other people's eyes. And even though this, they look like they were cash strapped and whatnot, to say that they're not as successful, I can't say that they're not as successful as Dr. fucking Brainwash and his bullshit $1 million opening, because in some ways they're richer and more real about the whole, they're more real as artists than he ever will be. And no amount of money in the world can change that or buy that.
Oh, exactly. I mean, just from what he was saying, I just remember the tough times when I was starting out, whether it was when we were making films and I still had a full-time job, or when I quit. I was scared to death, but I just knew this is what I had. I had to make it work, and I had to trust myself. And it's just, it just hit me on such a level. And then I look at, and then I think back to, like you said, Mr. fucking Brainwash, and he just fell into it. He just threw money at it, and he just had artists. Was it really his art? I don't know. He didn't really do too much except tell people how to do it.
He did splatter some paint on some.
A lot do work factory style like that. So, I mean, that could be stated that, yes, it was his because he orchestrated it and whatnot. But it was, and a lot of it was just kind of ripping off or riffing on other ideas. There was some funny stuff like Leonard Nimoy and like some turtleneck or something, I think.
Yeah, the different clothes and yeah.
That's the Warhol style, though.
Yeah, it totally was a Warhol ripoff.
Oh yeah.
And
same with the tomato spray can and
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he went to that well one too many times. Like some of the images were funny, but it's like his ego, especially when you saw the way his ego was right before the show. And again, having put productions like that, putting big shows, art shows like that together, it's like it's just ridiculous. Sometimes those type of people. My personal preference would be that artist at the opening that was a little more shy, that didn't necessarily want to engage. It wasn't over promoting everything like he was some rock star. And I guess that's why, in the short of it, Cutie and the Boxer was just, to me, a much better watch. It's got rewatchability. It's got, I don't know, it's got something that makes me smile and feel good about being alive and having positive interactions with people.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Anything else? We're going to end it on this. Chris.
Cutie and the Boxer.
Tom.
Yeah, I'll go Cutie and the Boxer.
Gabe.
Yeah, I think I have to go the same. Cutie and the Boxer.
And Sam.
Cutie and the Boxer.
Is this going to be it?
Okay.
Do we have any votes for exit through the gift shop?
Yes, we do.
We do.
Don't give away. Don't piss off.
Sorry, dude.
Don't-
Sorry, you
Let
can
the
cut
monkey do his
Don't
job.
piss off the monkey.
that. Yeah. Oh my God. I know. I pissed off the monkey once, and I still regret it.
All right.
You can cut that out.
We're going to go ahead and hit our recommendations, and I'll just start it off so I can do this very easy math. I want to recommend, now, documentaries. I don't know about you guys. Well, I'm pretty sure I know about you guys. I know you love to watch documentaries. For me, I love documentaries, but I really love documentaries about films or the behind the scenes stuff. I love I've tried to watch everything I have on disc. Whenever I get a new movie, if there's behind the scenes, I watch it. Now, this film is probably the greatest film that was never made, and it's called Jodorowsky's Dune. Now, I know most of you have heard of Dune. It's a book. It was also a film with Kyle MacLachlan and directed by David Lynch. But this is a documentary about Alejandro Jodorowsky and his vision of Dune and how he was wanting to make it before Star Wars was even released. And the amount of time and energy he put into this film and have it not be made is, in my mind, it's criminal because I want to see it. I want to see his vision. He reminds me a lot of is it Ushiro? Am I saying that right, guys? Yeah. His passion for this film and what he wanted to do with it, and he knew it back and forth. I mean, he sent out a book that is hundreds and hundreds of pages with the entire film storyboarded, all the concept art, everything, out to all the big film companies around the world. And it's just heartbreaking to hear what they have to say. So watch Jodorowsky's Dune if you love to watch documentaries about films.
Yeah, that's a great choice. Like Chris and I have seen it, and it's amazing. And just shows you the toil that a project can go through, even one that doesn't get made.
Mm-hmm.
It's mind-blowing.
So go ahead, Sam. Why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
Yeah, I'm going to stay true to my normal form and not really recommend anything about a documentary, even though we're talking about why change now? You can't. This is about 51. And the movie I want to point out is something that I rented or got through Netflix, the disc delivery. It's not streaming currently, but it's a film that was made in 2008. It didn't really get a lot of fanfare or notoriety when it was released. It's called Explicit Ills, and it's set in South Philadelphia. It basically follows 4 different stories that play out. You'll recognize a number of the actors in there. Rosario Dawson plays down on a luck mother that needs to get medicine for her sick son. You'll see Lou Taylor Pucci in there of Thumbsucker and Chum Scrubber fame, among lots of different titles. He's actually one of my favorite actors, and that's kind of why I got this. But basically, it's based on this true story about South Philadelphia, kind of inner city life between 4 different people and how it interacts with each other. I didn't know what to expect from this movie because it's not rated super high on Netflix or anything that I looked on. But it just has kind of a docu feel to it in a way, and kind of takes you inside these homes. You see, young sickness, you see young love, you see adult love, you see drug use, and how it all kind of plays out in their life. It's called Explicit Ills, and you can get it on Netflix or many other providers.
Nice. Thank you, Sam. Tom.
I'm going to stick to art documentaries because that's what I do. I don't talk about books or anything like that. I just, keep my nose down. Because if you try to get too far off topic, people make fun of you. But anyway.
You've learned your lesson, Tom.
Hey, I almost recommended a podcast, all right? So
I received the dead squirrel in the package, yes. We'll just talk about movies from now on. Thank you, guys. So my recommendation is the 2007 documentary, My Kid Could Paint That, and it's the story of a 4-year-old child prodigy who makes these wonderful, beautiful paintings in the documentary about how she does her work. But the documentary takes a turn when some doubts come up about whether or not she's actually doing the work herself, or if she is being kind of led by the hand by her hobby artist father. This movie is key to the darkest point in my marriage, that my wife and I almost split up over this movie because of some of the ethics that the filmmakers display in the movie. My wife questioned, and there's a scene where, without giving too much away, they confront the father with some evidence, and they don't tell him beforehand, and his wife is sitting on the couch next to him, and she is completely oblivious to this. And the filmmakers set up this very awkward family situation where they confront the father, and the mother is sitting right there, and it's played for a little bit of shock value. And my wife asked me if I was a filmmaker, would I do that? If I was making this documentary, would you set that up? And I said, yeah, I probably would. And yeah, it just was like 3 bad weeks after that.
Holy crap, 3 weeks?
Yeah, it was ugly. It was really ugly. Like 3 days of just not talking to me at all. And then she tried to engage and try and clarify, and she's like, yeah, but you wouldn't do that, would you? I was like, well, yeah, that's what you would do in a documentary, is you're looking for truth and you wanted the mom's honest reaction. So,
and you want to sell your film and have it be watchable and have a payoff. So
absolutely.
Of course you would do that.
Absolutely. And at the same time, Mike could campaign that it also very much deals with the abstract art and what is art, and some of the same themes that we talked about in the 2 movies tonight. And so that's why I think it's a perfect fit for recommendations, and I think everyone else should just not do recommendations because mine's so perfect.
It is good. I love that film. Good.
It's fantastic. Thank you very much. And you should also read Boys in the Boat. It's a great book.
Wait, did Dennis one time recommend a video game?
I think so.
Okay, I just had to clear. So, Tom, you haven't had the most off-topic suggestion.
Gabe.
Yeah, well, I think I'm going to take Tom's advice and not make any suggestions, because that was perfect.
Gabe, you ignorant slut.
Yes. Actually, I do have a suggestion, and it is not perfect, and it is not on topic, but I enjoyed this movie more than I expected to. I'm going to suggest you go see Kingsman: The Secret Service.
Oh, I want to see that.
It's actually really fun. It kind of exceeded my expectations, and that's why I'm recommending it. I expected it just to be kind of ridiculous, and it is. It's pretty over the top, but it's really entertaining, and it's really fun, and it's really well put together, and the characters are fun to watch, and you're really kind of rooting for people, and there's just this really crazy, over the top, excessive violence, and it's really very entertaining. So I would recommend, if you're just in the mood to kind of check out and have an entertaining time, just go see Kingsman: The Secret Service.
All right, thanks, Gabe. Chris.
Yeah, I would like to recommend, and it's way off topic, but I'd like to circle back around, actually. You got me thinking, Mike. But anyway, I'd like to recommend the movie called The Babadook. It's an Australian horror film that Sam and I watched not too long ago. Oh my gosh, it's so scary. It's about a mother and a son that live alone. The dad died in a car crash, and then all of a sudden a book shows up on the kid's bookshelf called The Babadook, about a creature that lives in your closet that's going to come kill you, basically. And it gets crazier from there. The kid's basically driving the mom insane, so you don't really know what's real and what isn't. It's quite amazing. So yeah, that's what I was prepared to talk about. What Mike reminded me of is my favorite documentary that I've ever seen. It's called The Celluloid Closet. It's from about 1994. It's about homosexual subtext in film throughout history, from the very first Thomas Edison films through 1994, and how sexuality has had to hide throughout that time, worse during like the Hays Code period, and then coming out, for lack of a better term, in the 90s. So anyway, I need to see that again myself sometime soon.
I have to look for that. I really want to see that.
Lily Tomlin narrates that, doesn't she?
Yes, she
Really?
does.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
So many good people in it. Shirley MacLaine and Whoopi Goldberg, all these people.
Tony Curtis, like they have
yes.
they have lots of
all
great
this stuff about Spartacus and things like that.
Well, thank you for the recommendations, boys. I was trying to take one that maybe I didn't think you had heard of, any of you, and I was hoping one of you would mention The Jinx or Going Clear, because I watched both those and holy crap.
Right.
So maybe there's 2 more recommendations for you. Check those
For
out.
sure, Going Clear. We saw that just last week. I thought it was really good, especially talking about documentaries, current documentaries that get you asking questions. And some people have criticized that doesn't really tell you anything. It's all innuendo. But in some ways, a good documentary will get you asking the questions for you to find out more yourself. And it's like it doesn't have to necessarily be delivered to you in a big bow.
Right.
To me, which makes it more interesting to actually process the information of what did I see.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, they really couldn't come out and charge them with anything. They could only do innuendo. I mean, they had, from where I read, like 30 lawyers going over the footage saying you can use this, you can't use this. Because, Scientologists will come after you. Yeah, they will just come after you with every lawyer they have. And so they had to really tread lightly, and yet they were still able to make a very provocative film, I thought. But The Jinx, man, that one was just, I think, probably better than Going Clear, just because of the subject matter. And it reminded me, because Tom brought up My Kid Could Paint That. And, there's a point where they sit him down to show him some evidence that they have. And I'm not going to spoil anything. And it's not brought up to him what they're actually going to be showing him. So they get this these raw feelings and his... I don't want to say anything else because I don't want to give it away, but just check out The Jinx and or Going Clear. All right, let's find out who won. Poking the monkey.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is Cutie and the Boxer!
That's a surprise.
That is a big
it
surprise.
is a surprise. Yeah.
That is a big surprise. All right. So, Tom, tell us
Yes.
where people can maybe exit through your gift shop.
Hey,
That,
all right.
that sounded a lot dirtier than what I meant. But
Well, you got to come first and then you exit.
Turning blue, I love it.
Hey. My kids usually turn off by this point anyway. So,
Yeah.
usually after Dad suggests a book, they turn it off.
they just listen for the monkey, smartass.
Sorry, go ahead. Tom.
Starting next month, you can find me on a competing podcast called Film Smack. No, you Facebook and Vimeo and Wedding Day Rewind and CheshireMoonFilms.com is where you find all of our awesomest stuff.
Now, I want to point out something. I've done 2 documentaries, and I really, really look at Tom as a documentarian. He does it week in and week out through spring, summer, and fall.
Thank you.
I mean, you put together some great stuff. I know Sam and Chris had you do their wedding. You did our wedding. And the stuff that you capture is fantastic. And I mean, you're a documentarian in your own right, Tom.
Oh, thank you.
And I think you do a fantastic job, and I have the pleasure of working along with you, just like I'll be working with you this Saturday. But that's besides the point. I just wanted to give you a little shout out as
thank
a
you.
great documentary filmmaker.
Well, he's a jolly good fellow.
Thank you. I feel bad about all that stuff I spray painted on that bridge about you, but
I'll just take pictures. It's all right. Sam.
You can find me on Facebook. We're kind of cranking up the 48-hour film project machine for Des Moines for one more season here in the fantastic summer of the city. So you can find out all information about that at 48hourfilm.com/Des Moines. And the event this year is going to happen at the end of July, screenings in August. And we're looking forward to a bunch of films made in a short amount of time.
All right. Gabe.
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook as well and at onegenomeshort.com.
All right. And Chris. Thank you for joining us, Chris. If you want to tell people maybe your favorite book. No, I don't know. If you don't want people to follow you on Facebook, it's fine.
You can find me on Facebook. It's just under my name. I'm all over Facebook.
All right. Well, yeah, for me, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. So's the studio. We have a webpage that Gabe hasn't finished. And
Yep.
Oh, sorry, I had to throw that in there.
Don't look at onegenomeshort.com either because
that's
not
what
good.
happens when you're busy. We would appreciate it if you could leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting service you use. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. And for June, we head for the stars as two interstellar titans face off. The Empire Strikes Back versus Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. That's going to be a big one, boys. For Gabe, Sam, Chris, Tom, and myself, thanks for listening, and go catch a flick.
silence.
I didn't know what to say.
We all knew we
Did
were
Chris
waiting
make
for
you
Sam.
nervous?
I was waiting for you.
I don't know what to do. It's like there's no.
There's There's
What do you
nothing.
do?
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.